When police officer Sarah, disguised as a grieving widow, walked into the prison gates, she discovered it was more than just a place for punishing criminals. It was a hub of exploitation. Officer Mark, one of the guards, would sleep with inmates, forcing them to surrender their dignity. In this prison, guards were raping female prisoners, spending nights with them, and committing unspeakable acts. When Sarah entered the facility as an inmate, the same horrors awaited her. Before we continue the story, if you find this powerful tale of justice and bravery inspiring, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more moving stories. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from, whether it's Morocco, Egypt, Iraq, or Saudi Arabia. Your support inspires us to do more. Let's continue. It was around 10 p.m. in a lavish government office in the city. Sarah sat among stacks of files on her desk. The light was dim and the silence was heavy. One thick file lay open before her, labeled Confidential Reports, Violations in Women's Prison. Sarah took a deep breath and opened it. The first page shook her to the core. Under the headings Sexual Exploitation, Physical Abuse and Psychological Torture, all attributed to guard Michael, there were 2 photographs and an anonymous audio recording that broke Sarah's heart. This wasn't just another complaint. It was a call for justice. She knew a formal investigation would take time, but the screams of these women couldn't wait. Within hours, she made a decision and devised a plan. She would enter the prison herself, but not as Officer Sarah. She would go in undercover, posing as Rachel, a 35-year-old widow falsely accused of murdering her husband. A fake police report and arrest warrant were arranged. Only a handful of officials knew the plan. 3 days later, a police van rolled through the prison's iron gates. A woman stepped out, timid in appearance, fear in her eyes, weakness in her steps. She wore torn clothes, a scarf over her head, and a broken bracelet dangled from her wrist. It was Officer Sarah, now Rachel. Her first night in prison was unbearable. A damp cell, spoiled lentil soup, and a female guard who shouted and cursed. Sarah felt every moment, knowing her mission began here. The next day, a woman quietly approached her and said, "Sister, you're new. Don't talk much. If the guard notices you, it's over." It was Layla, who had been imprisoned for 4 years without trial. Sarah asked her innocently why she was still there. Layla broke into tears and replied, "The women fear the night. Those who refuse get beaten or poisoned." That night, Sarah decided to witness the pain with her own eyes. She hid a small camera in a crack in the wall. Her trusted driver, Adam, was stationed outside. On the 3rd night, guard Michael appeared for the first time. Tall, broad, with eyes burning with lust, and a face full of arrogance. He asked, "You're new?" Sarah nodded. "Rachel," she replied. His look made it clear he'd soon drag her down the same path where many women had been broken. Sarah ensured the camera was recording. Everything was going according to plan, but this was just the beginning. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Moans and cries echoed through the walls, and in her heart, a fire began to grow, one fueled by rage. She clenched her fist and made a vow: she would not stay silent. She began counting down the days of corruption in those prison corridors. That particular night was different. An eerie silence hung in the air. The wind had stilled, and the cries seemed trapped within the walls. Still disguised as Rachel, Sarah sat in the corner of her cell, lost in thought. 3 days had passed, but the horror she had imagined was far worse in reality. Suddenly, the door opened. 2 guards stepped in. "Inmate 114, come with us. The officer wants to see you." 114 was Rachel's number, Sarah's cover identity. She gathered herself and followed them. They led her to a part of the prison off-limits to regular inmates. Inside was guard Michael's office, lavish, with framed pictures on the walls, a bottle of wine on the desk, and a comfortable sofa in the corner. A different world within the prison. Michael, seated in his chair, said, "Come in, my new queen. What's your name?" "Rachel," Sarah answered softly, so softly the walls wouldn't hear. The guard grabbed her chin, lifted her face, and smiled. "From now on, your name will be whatever I decide to call you." His eyes oozed desire. Sarah lowered her gaze, but inside she was tense. The hidden camera in her bracelet was recording every moment. Michael approached, trying to remove her headscarf. Sarah suddenly pushed him away and stepped back, her voice shaking. "I'm scared, sir." He laughed. "This is just the beginning, Rachel. Fear has no place here. You'll get used to it." He pressed a buzzer. A female guard entered. "Put her in the surveillance cell under my watch." Sarah was moved to a different cell, slightly bigger, cleaner, but fitted with mesh walls that allowed Michael to watch her from all sides. At 2 a.m., the door creaked open. Layla entered quietly. "Rachel, be careful at night. Many women break here." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, but her voice was firm. "Your screams won't be silenced by these walls, Layla. I promise." The next 2 nights were filled with fear and abuse. Michael tried to lure Rachel through sweet talk, through threats, through force. But Sarah, pretending to be frightened and broken, was edging closer to her goal. Outside, her driver Adam posed daily as a lawyer near the prison, coordinating video uploads, liaising with media, and connecting with high-level officials. On the 4th night, Michael made it clear, "Tonight is your choice. Be mine or die." The cell door opened, but Sarah wasn't alone anymore. Hidden in her waistband was a small transmitter. When Michael tried to assault her, she activated it. Adam received the signal instantly. He rushed in with the police commissioner, the women's commission, and reporters. In the darkness of the prison, the sound of approaching light grew louder. Sarah, still in her Rachel disguise, had the fire of a revolution in her eyes. The darkness of that 3rd night was unlike any other. The air was thick with tension. Rachel no longer looked like Sarah. She had become a storm from within. Her mission had reached the point of no return. It was around 1 a.m. when a drunk Michael stumbled out of his office and made his way toward the surveillance cell where Rachel was held. A wine bottle in one hand, lust in his eyes, and the key to her cell in his pocket. 2 guards at the door stepped aside at his signal. He opened the door. "No more excuses. Tonight you're mine, whether you like it or not." Sarah stepped back 2 paces and whispered with fear, "I'm ready to serve you, sir. But please, just a little mercy." Michael shut the door behind him. No one else was inside. Suddenly, Sarah pressed a concealed button on her waistband. Live recording began. At the same time, Adam started broadcasting the footage online. As Michael moved closer, Sarah asked, "Should I serve you first, or tell you what I know?" He froze, confused. "What are you talking about?" Sarah stood tall. The fear vanished from her face, replaced with blazing defiance. "I know you're not just a guard. You're running an entire criminal operation. You turned Layla, Zara, and others into slaves of body and soul. Your men smuggle drugs into the prison. You take bribes from criminals outside and offer them women in return. And those who speak up, they're found dead in the prison well." Michael laughed. "And what are you going to do about it? You're just a widow. Who are you going to tell?" Sarah replied coldly, "I've already told the people who matter. You're live right now. The whole country is watching your monstrous truth." Michael's face turned pale. He staggered back. Suddenly, the door burst open. In marched the Women's Commission, the police commissioner, reporters, and Adam. "Michael, you are under arrest for attempted rape, abuse of power, running a criminal enterprise inside a state facility, and several other major offenses, announced the commissioner. Michael tried to flee, but the officers blocked every exit. The guards who had served him now stood with their heads bowed in shame. Sarah, now fully back in her identity as a police officer, looked at the surveillance camera one last time and said, "This is not just the arrest of one corrupt guard. This is the fall of a system that silenced women's cries for years. From now on, the voice of justice will echo through every cell, not fear." Chaos erupted in the prison. Investigations launched. Files of missing women resurfaced. What had been buried in the archives now shone with truth. With Michael's arrest, an entire criminal network inside the prison was exposed. But this was only the beginning. Sarah knew powerful figures were still hiding behind the scenes, some in uniforms, others in plain clothes, and some wearing masks. Sarah's identity as a police officer was now public. The undercover operation had shaken the entire prison system. Breaking news flooded every media outlet. Police officer, disguised as widow, uncovers prison network of rape and drug trafficking. But Sarah knew Michael had only been a tool. The real mastermind was still hiding in the shadows, protecting men like him. After Michael's arrest, the prison was thoroughly searched. They uncovered fake inmate names, forged documents, drugs, and dozens of photos of missing women. But one thing struck Sarah deeply: a hidden journal. In a secret letter tucked away in Michael's office, someone had written, "By order of the boss, Layla and the new woman named Rachel have been moved to the surveillance cell. The boss said she must be broken like the others." Who was this boss? Sarah's eyes hardened. She was no longer just an officer. She was now a woman on a mission for all the women who had died within those prison walls. The following day, Sarah held a secret meeting with the Women's Commission and the Anti-Crime Task Force. They traced the boss to a highly respected figure in the city, a 3-term member of the Legislative Council named Richard Alston. He had faced previous accusations, but always escaped justice due to lack of evidence. Michael had been one of his men, running the prison network on his behalf. Now Sarah had enough proof, but this wasn't just about making an arrest. Richard was an elected official. The case required careful strategy. She crafted a new plan. This time, she wasn't alone. A special operations team from the region joined her. Then came a phone call. A trembling female voice said, "My name is Zara. I'm a victim of the network. I know where the boss is, but my life's in danger." Sarah took the call seriously. The next day, in plain clothes and without official escort, she went to meet Zara. The young woman led her to an old farm frequently visited by Richard, a place where he held private parties. Sarah saw surveillance cameras, armed guards, and secret doors. It wasn't a farm. It was a fortress of darkness. Before long, Richard learned Sarah was after him. He gave the order. She must not leave alive. Sarah was now playing a deadly game where everything was at stake: her life, her identity, and her mission. But her resolve was unshaken. She swore there would never be another Rachel. The visit to the farm, along with Zara's testimony, gave Sarah a thread that could unravel the whole network. But the game was getting more dangerous. Richard wasn't just powerful, he was calculated. The task force had enough evidence, but every move had to be precise. One wrong step, and the entire mission and Sarah's life could be lost. One evening, as Sarah prepared the operation with her team, a messenger arrived with a package. Inside, a burned headscarf and a chilling note. "The fire you lit in our den will burn you and your mission to ashes. You are no longer an officer. You are our enemy. You're next." Sarah read the message, but her face showed no fear. Her eyes burned with determination. The next day, a confidential tip reached Sarah. Richard Alston was organizing a private party that evening. 5 young women from the prison were being secretly transferred to the farm to be presented to foreign guests. Sarah understood. This was her chance. There was no turning back. At 9 p.m., Operation Black Night began. Sarah and her team headed toward the farm, but on the bridge leading out of the city, a truck rammed into their vehicle. Adam, her loyal driver, died on the spot. Sarah sustained serious injuries but remained conscious. It was a planned attack. Later, the truck driver confessed he had been ordered from the top. Stop the officer at any cost. Sarah was rushed to the hospital. In pain and wrapped in bandages, she woke up and said one thing: "Call my team. The operation continues. I'll go, even on a stretcher." When she left the hospital, her face was wrapped in white gauze, but her eyes blazed with fire. The special unit encircled the farm from all sides. Inside, a party was already underway with foreign guests. Richard and his men were caught completely off guard. At midnight, the doors were breached. Gunshots rang out. Screams echoed across the compound. Richard Alston tried to escape on horseback. He was arrested before he could flee. 5 women were rescued, including Layla, who had previously been declared dead. It was more than just a raid. It was a detonation of truth. Proof that a woman's fight for justice can shake the very foundations of power. Sarah hadn't just saved the women from that farm, she had torn up the roots of the entire network. Human trafficking, drug operations, prison abuse, all dismantled. But the war was not over. There were others like Richard, hiding behind political titles, government suits, and public masks. Sarah's next mission? To expose them all. After the success of Operation Black Night, Sarah's story swept across the nation. Every news outlet and newspaper praised her unmatched courage. But she knew the war wasn't over. Richard Alston had only been a high-ranking puppet. The real fight was against the mindset that treated women as commodities under the shelter of power. Following his arrest, Richard stood trial. Outside the courthouse, crowds chanted, "Long live Officer Sarah! Down with rapists! No more crimes under political protection." Sarah appeared at the trial in person and addressed the court. "Your Honor, our greatest mistake has been treating criminals like respected leaders. These men turn prisons into dens of exploitation, dragging inmates into a network of rape, human trafficking, and narcotics. I ask not just for justice under law, but for justice under conscience." A deep silence fell across the courtroom. But the evidence was overwhelming. Eyewitness testimonies, video recordings, and official documents. The court sentenced Richard Alston to life in prison for rape, trafficking, conspiracy to murder, and corruption. It was more than just a verdict, it was a message. Abuse of power will no longer be tolerated. The Ministry of Internal Affairs awarded Sarah the Medal of Bravery. But she declined the celebration and immediately went to visit the rescued women, Layla, Zara, and the others, now recovering at a rehabilitation center. When they saw her, the women said, "Ma'am, you gave us back our dignity. You did what even our families couldn't do." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she embraced them. "You are no longer just survivors. You're starting a new life." Months later, Sarah was offered the position of chairwoman of the National Committee on Women's Security under the central government. But she respectfully declined. She knew her true battlefield wasn't behind a desk, but wherever injustice still lived. In her final interview, a journalist asked, "Ma'am, aren't you afraid of such powerful enemies?" Sarah smiled and said, "If a woman can infiltrate a prison disguised as a widow, then any woman can change the system." And with that smile, a new dawn of justice began. Friends, Sarah's story reminds us that justice requires courage and conviction. Every step toward change transforms the world. Share this story with those who need strength. Learn, grow, and never lose hope. After every hardship comes victory. Work hard, believe in yourself, and lift others with you. Our goal is not just to share knowledge, but to help create change. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your attention. You're not just viewers, you're part of our family. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay inspired. We'll see you soon with more powerful and uplifting stories. Goodbye.